You can't give judges the tools they need to appropriately adjudicate these cases without resources. And the entire budget of the entire government of Liberia is $230 million a year for the entire country. This it might sound like a lot of money, but it's really not to run an entire country. So here we have a problem with resources. And when you start to talk about resources, you have to talk about the current form of imperialism, the current form of outside intervention, not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well. And you have to look at the role of donor countries, and you have to look at the role of multinational corporations, and the ways in which places that are not Africa are profiting from African resources, and how those resources are not going to those states that are actually trying to protect the rights of their citizens. But it's not always just either a brutal dictatorship, like in Kenya or Chad, or Liberia before the war, but it can also be countries that seem to be doing well, that have a lot of resources, but people try to consolidate their power, and they do it in ways that end up contributing to the violation of human rights. And Kenya is a good example. We saw the electoral violence in Kenya. Kenya has a fairly healthy democracy, and certainly has a very healthy economy. But we saw the electoral violence a few years ago. Just a couple of days ago, Kenyan MPs passed a law that I think probably is going to have the potential to severely restrict journalistic freedom, which a lot of people are seeing as a throwback to earlier days of Moi. Malawi is another example. Malawi had a really fantastic transition from long-term rule to democratic election, peaceful transition of power, really quite amazing. But over time, and in the last few years, has been trying to exert more influence on the judiciary, trying to exert more influence on the academy. There were some unfortunate killings. There was some, in addition to corruption. And so the problem of human rights in Africa is not a monolithic problem. It's a problem that depends on the country you're talking about. It's a problem that depends on the nature of the government or ruling regime that you're talking about. It's a problem that depends on the access to resources of where you are and what you're doing. And so I hope I've tried to break it down a little bit here. Obviously, breaking it down further would take much more than time that I have. And I promised that I was not going to talk about solutions and interject my own ideas, and I'm not. But I will just say that there are organizations like Wake Up For Your Rights. There are organizations like the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, which is an African NGO based in Banjul that takes cases to the African Commission and the African Court of Human and People's Rights. There are organizations all over that are doing things like trying to bring perpetrators to justice. There are outside, and sometimes it actually works. Charles Taylor was convicted. Hussein Habre might maybe at some point face some form of justice. We keep hoping, and it's always almost there. Bashir from Sudan is under indictment from the International Criminal Court. And so I started with some hope about the changes in the law. In the middle, less hopeful, because there are ongoing human rights violations of different types and different characters. But I hope I can end on a hopeful note by saying that homegrown solutions to these problems do actually have a chance of making a difference. Justice can be achieved, even if it's very, 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 very difficult. thank you all again for your time.